The Treaty of Lutatius, signed in 241 BC, brought the First Punic War to a formal end. After over 2 decades of brutal sea battles and bloodshed, Carthage was forced to sue for peace. Rome emerged victorious, demanding 3,200 talents of silver from Carthage as war reparations. In addition, Carthage surrendered control of Sicily, which became Rome's very first overseas province. For Carthage, it was a bitter humiliation. Sicily had once been its jewel, a symbol of pride and power. Now it belonged to the very people they had once underestimated. But Rome wasn't satisfied. A few years after the treaty, while Carthage struggled with internal revolts, Rome demanded more, this time targeting Sardinia and Corsica. Using Carthage's weakness as leverage, Rome claimed the islands and imposed an additional 1,200 talents. Many historians call this act unjust, even imperialistic in hindsight. This act of opportunism outraged Carthaginians. Even those who had favored peace saw Rome's action not as diplomacy, but as betrayal and greed. One man who took this insult to heart was Hannibal Barca, a brilliant Carthaginian general. He had led his people valiantly, but was sidelined during the final negotiations. Though spared blame, Hamilcar was seething. He believed Rome had stolen Carthage's honor, not just its land, and he vowed that the day of reckoning would come. In a powerful moment recorded by the Greek historian Polybius, Hamilcar took his young son Hannibal to the altar of Baal Hammon and made him swear an unbreakable oath. The boy, barely 9, placed his hand on the sacred fire and swore never to be a friend of Rome, never to forgive, and never to forget what they had done to Carthage. That boy was Hannibal Barca, the man who would grow up to become one of Rome's greatest nightmares and one of the most legendary generals in world history. Years later, Hannibal would lead an army through the Alps, marching with war elephants into Italy, shocking the Romans and shaking their republic to its core. But all of that began here, with a treaty, a betrayal, and a vow spoken by a child whose hatred was forged by the fire of humiliation and loss. The First Punic War had done more than change borders. It had transformed Rome into a naval power, taught it how to fight on sea, and established it as a growing empire. Carthage, once dominant in the western Mediterranean, was humbled. Its ships were limited, its influence diminished, and its pride shattered by defeat and deception. Yet the spark of revenge smoldered quietly. Carthage had lost a war, but it had not lost its will to resist. That resistance would return with terrifying force. Historians continue to debate, was Rome justified in entering the war over Messana, a city they barely knew? Or was it a calculated move driven by expansionist greed? Rome claimed they were protecting allies, but others argue they saw an opportunity to conquer and dominate trade routes, laying the foundation for empire. Whatever the reason, the consequences were massive. The Mediterranean would never be the same. The Punic Wars had begun, and they would shape centuries to come. The First Punic War ended in 241 BC, but the real battle, one of memory, revenge, and destiny, was only just beginning. Carthage had not yet spoken its final word.